I was gonna build Golos. I'm that guy. This was before I built Ramos because I wanted. Why is
Whoa? What just happened?
No, get away from me. What? Sorry, 1 second while I fix my camera.
Guys, we found our cold open.
There's the cold open. Hello and welcome everybody to the MTG Thoughtcast. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or your favorite podcast app, welcome. We're so glad you're here. My name is Joseph Rubino. I'm your host for the MTG Thoughtcast, and I'm joined today by the man who thought that the band hammer was a tool that you could purchase at Home Depot. It's Jared Bobier. How's it going, my friend?
Dude, it's going so well. I can't wait to talk about the ban list with you guys. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun.
I love it. And to my other side on the screen and in your ears is the man who thought we were talking about banding and prepared a whole separate podcast. Jon, my brother, how's it going?
This is why you don't leave me alone for too long, because I'll be trying to make completely different categories. Hello.
It's true. Man, should banding be banned? This is off the dome. Let's go, Jon. Do we ban banding?
Banding. So banding is this old keyword.
Okay, Jon, shut up.
My hot take is yes, that mechanic is horrible. Ban it.
I love it. Well, and that just leaves us to all of you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for clicking on the video, watching. We have been loving all of the support that we've been getting in the last few episodes. It's been amazing to see this little channel grow. If you want to be a part of the growth and carry along with us on our journey and get direct access to us, you can join our Discord linked right down below. It's totally free. We just want to hang out with you. We're there all the time. We have Looking for Games channels, Spell Table going all the time. Just jump in down below and get more of Jared's hot takes on the ban list. While you're at it down below, real quick, it helps us out a ton, and it's totally free. If you like, comment, subscribe, get the notifications on, any of the buttons that you want to press, help us and help the robot overlords tell the YouTube algorithm that you want to see our face more often in your feed, and we really appreciate that. So thanks so much for being here. I think we're ready to just dive straight on into the episode. This is one that Jared specifically was very excited about and is going to be taking the charge on a bit on this one.
Dope.
So I get to kick back and go back on vacation on this one.
Take it easy, bro.
But yeah, as previously mentioned, we are talking about the ban list today.
Yes.
And it's a hot topic. It's a hot takes on the way, but before we dive into what the ban list entails of, Jared, do you want to, or Jon, whoever wants to jump in, do you want to give us a brief kind of what is the ban list for Commander? Why is it here? Do we need it? What is it?
I'll take the lead on this if you guys are cool with that. I have a lot of thoughts about this, as you can tell. Why
would you cast your thoughts?
I might
Perhaps.
Thoughtcast. Am I thoughtcasting right now?
Roll the intro.
All right.
Casting his thoughts with
list.
affinity.
Whoa.
So my personal opinion is any kind of card game that takes itself seriously, that has multiple formats, it needs to have ban lists, because that means it has a card pool that's large enough. You can play the game in multiple different ways. So the only way to effectively do that in a way that's fun and enjoyable for all of the different formats is to recognize what becomes an unhealthy play pattern in the format and then restrict that or eliminate it from play, depending on what it is. I think everyone in Commander has basically soft banned land destruction. That's a good argument to put it on the ban list.
Interesting.
That's a very, if the social contract of your game is saying, this is banned. That is what the social contract of Commander currently says about land destruction. That's a very good reason to put on the ban list. That is the game we are playing. So the ban list, what it is it's recognizing this is the game we are playing. This is what we are contributing to the game or not contributing to the game. This is the experience we are choosing to have. Basically, the ban list is what Rule Zero is supposed to do.
Yeah.
That the fact that we have Rule Zero at all, because we like ultimately, if you boil it down, our ban list is so ineffective that we have a subcategory of Commander called CDH now that literally exists inside of the larger format of Commander, but isn't technically Commander, because if you ask anyone who plays this game, they won't say, games. They will not say they're the same. The social contracts of the game are completely different depending on what you're playing. The cards you are allowed socially to play are different. Like if you play a Mana Crypt in a casual game, you will get like the same look as if you play an Armageddon. Like that is
true.
Like, and that shouldn't be happening. Like those are both two legal cards in the game, and like one is mass land destruction and the other gives you mana. Like that, the only reason that those two cards are playable in the same format is because we have a ban list that is super weird. And to me, like this brings up a different argument altogether that I'm just going to put this out there. We're going to continue to have this conversation with the current landscape of play that we have, which is where CDH and Commander are the same format. But I personally believe CDH and Commander would both be healthier formats if they had their own ban list and were their own format, because then they can make choices for themselves. Like Dockside is not a problem in casual, but it's a huge problem in CDH. In casual pods, you're like, why are you banning Dockside? The Dockside actually gets worse the less artifacts are getting played.
Yeah.
So the less fast mana you have, the amount of times I've personally cast a Dockside for like 3 treasure, 4 treasure, less than that, like a bad Dockside, like because I'm playing in mostly casual environments, that card feels very fair in those situations. Yeah. I'm also playing it in a mono red deck where I'm not blinking it up and down. So that's obviously within the specific caveat of my play experience. But that's to my point of like, where do we draw the line for all of this stuff? We have to kind of figure that out. And I think combining CDH and Commander, which in the reality of play, like we just discussed, they are completely different. Like continuing to not recognize those differences, forcing them to be the same format, is making an unhealthy play experience for both of the formats together. Yeah. So we need, my opinion, we need to put our big boy pants on and separate the formats. We'd all have a better time.
Yes.
But we're not doing that right now. That's not what we have agreed upon as a community.
Right.
We can always start, but for now we have the ban list and it doesn't work. There's a lot of outdated stuff on here. There's a lot of things that are currently in play that if you look at the ban list, you're like, why is that legal and why is this on the ban list? That doesn't make any sense. So hopefully we can unpack some of that.
So before we get into that, there's a couple branching thoughts off of that, which I think that was a great monologue about.
That was a lot.
No, totally. That was, first of all, Yap City.
I just started yapping.
My boy started yapping. So we normally have a caveat in here about like, we're explicitly talking about casual play, not competitive play. But what you're talking about, and the point that I agree with you is like, there is a ban list, which is normally for a competitive format, for something that's inherently a casual format. So like what I actually think what you're trying to say and what I'll jump off of is I don't know if there should be a ban list for casual Commander. We should just have a ban list for competitive play at tournaments and let the casual folks do whatever they want to do. Like social.
Oh, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. Well, I have a different take on that, but go ahead.
There's, and we'll get into some of the philosophy from the rules committee on the reason why they ban things. But a lot of it comes down to like, metas are kind of self-governing. Like your play group, the average person probably plays with somewhere between 6 and 10 different people regularly. And those groups tend to self-regulate pretty quickly, where like, if you're playing an Armageddon, you're not really going to get asked back into the pod again. And then you realize, oh, I shouldn't be playing Armageddon, and you take it out of your deck. Like, I've personally done this. So, like, the ban list sort of sorts itself out. Like, if we all, again, put on our big boy pants, big girl pants, whatever we want to put on, and just go like, hey, we're not having fun when you play Leovold as your commander. Like, don't do that. We don't want to play against your Leovold deck. Like, so I think that the casual groups should be able to sort themselves out in a normal way. Or like, man, I watched a video recently of Post Malone playing no ban list commander, and it looked so fun. Like, it just comes down to whatever your play group wants to do. Just abide by those things. Like, agree upon things with your own personal play group and decide what you do and don't want to do. Like, do you want to adhere to the competitive ban list? Yes or no? It's fine either way, because you're not playing for anything outside of just playing the game with your friends. That being said, there is a ban list in play, and it is there. We're not in this pipe dream world where CEDH and Commander are separate formats, and we have just a ban list for CEDH. So we do need to talk about the ban list as it is today. Yes. John, do you want to give us a brief logistics of the ban list? Like, who controls it? What's going on with it?
Yeah, sure. So the Commander is kind of a very strange one, because Wizards of the Coast, Magic itself, whatever, they obviously put out official product, official supplementary things, precons every set now, loving that for content creators like us.
When are we going to get to 8 precons a set? Can we get there, Wizards? Let's go. Let's crank up production a little bit.
Next Ravnica, 1 for every 2 color guild.
Bro, don't even say that. Daddy Wizards is gonna hear you.
Wizards,
no, make it stop. Sorry.
So Wizards puts out official product that obviously can be played and utilized within Commander, but as a whole, kind of from the beginning, Commander was kind of conceived of and then sort of adopted into the play pattern as sort of an unofficial thing. It was created unofficially as a fan creation. Hey, here's a format idea that sounds bold and restricting. Sort of take the concept of what you can do with restricted legacy or vintage or whatever, and make your deck really, really big, and you've got this general, he's at the front of your armies, you know what I mean? The kind of embodying what the sort of lore of what Magic as a whole is, because the fundamental lore behind what a Magic game entails is you, the planeswalker, casting your spells and abilities and bringing your armies in from your deck into the battlefield. So Commander was conceived as this idea as hey, here's your front face general who's in charge of all of your spells and your creatures and things like that, but he only has a limited supply,
Yeah. Also, as a very interesting side note, Commander was originally conceived as the poor man's Magic, because you only needed 1 copy of your cards. You didn't need to buy 4 copies of the card. So it was people would just take their trade binders and essentially shuffle them into a deck. And they're let's put a general in front of it. So it's funny where it's gotten to now from where it started. But it is now anyway, you and John were both going to build Golos.
And literally
I had Golos.
I have the card still because I had him, but I hadn't bought the rest of the deck. I felt I was obviously bummed out, but I totally understood. That was obviously frustrating getting Golos banned, but I'm this needed to happen. I was building Golos because I was tired of getting beat by Golos. I was I'm going to literally become the villain because I'm so tired of losing to this deck.
Which is obviously a spiraling play pattern that the rules committee doesn't want to happen. And the people who are kind of in charge of the keeping a finger on the pulse of the health of the format are well, if you're either playing it or dying to it, that probably needs to just go.
Yeah, and that was the segue that I was working towards with that whole the start of the conversation that I was going with as well, is that even though Wizards puts out the official product, the regulated ban list that is adhered to when it comes to an official play, things like that, that's kind of done from a sort of subcommittee, the rules committee. And the commander advisories group also has a say in things as well, but it comes down to the rules committee specifically. So it's kind of strange. It's it's a format being dictated by 2 heads, more or less, right?
Governed is a better word, but yes.
Well, like a Hydra, magic.
We're not implying that the rules committee are dictators. Let me be perfectly clear about this.
You guys are fine.
We think they're doing a great job.
You guys are fine. No, that's all great to understand and know. Like, it is a little more complicated than Wizards being able to recognize a problem in a format and then fix it immediately. They have to literally consult with an external party to be like, can you do this, or vice versa? Like, hey, please stop printing cards like X for our format. It's kind of destroying us. Like, those are all conversations that have to be had with Commander that they don't have to talk about with Standard, with anything else. Like, those are all formats that are controlled by Wizards. My last thing before we dive into the nitty gritty is Commander is an eternal format. The cards exist forever. That's an upside, but it's a downside too, because the more cards get printed, things break. That's just inevitable. Like, there is only so much design space for cards in this game, and for Wizards to be able to make a new product, because they have to do that. Their company cannot exist, and we can't play this game unless they exist. So they have to make new product. That new product will sometimes break the old product. That's just how it works. And the only way to have like an actual format, and this is why I say, like, even though like in a perfect world, like maybe CDH gets to have a ban list in Commander as a casual format, doesn't have to have one. I still think you have to have a ban list, because you have to be able to say, this is our game. This is how you play it. And for that game to be healthy in a transferable way, because yes, for the most part, you play with your like pod of people. You're like 4 to 6 to 10 people that you play with on a regular basis. You play with those people, but you also might go and play at a card shop. And if there is no ban list, but you're playing casual Commander, that's not a good reason for someone to just like biorhythm you out of nowhere. Like, that will still feel horrible. And then you're going to be like, why is biorhythm not banned? They will start this conversation all over again. So I think at the end of the day, ban lists are essential for an eternal format. The way to fix a ban list is to make a rotating format. They already have done this. Yep. Go play Standard. So we're going to talk about the ban list and how to fix it.
John?
Yeah. So we've broken down here then, and it's good to bring this up, is like, all things considered, with Commander being part of the eternal format, like length, you know what I mean? All the cards that are able to be played in it. All things considered, I'll explain my caveat of this, but under 50 real cards on the ban list, that's not bad, all things considered, right?
Look, you don't get to like 30 plus years of designing a game without doing some really, really good work.
Exactly. Yeah, so all things considered, like, Commander is still vastly open to almost any card type and strategy that you're looking to build. So having to just mitigate, again, less than 50 of these from your deck for, you know, official purposes, you know what I mean? That's not awful to go through, right? Some of us probably don't even own any of these cards, honestly, because some of them are old or they've been on the ban list forever, so no one's buying them anymore, you know what I mean? Like, I don't own a channel, you know? I don't own Fast Bond.
Yeah.
I certainly don't own the Moxen.
I own a Fast Bond playmat.
That's funny. I think I own quite a bit of these. I definitely own a channel. I definitely own a balance. I definitely own Gifts Ungiven. Definitely own. I have a couple braids.
Yeah,
I'm a ban list collector.
Ooh, okay,
it'd be a cool collection. Honestly,
I really would. Just a binder of banned cards.
We'll save this for the legendary creature discussion. Anyway, do we want to start breaking this down into categories of what's on the ban list?
Sure.
Yeah.
And talk about it that way.
Let me go ahead and start at the top and talk about the things that we are not including today as part of the conversation, because these are the cards that are included as part of the ban list, kind of for just like obvious reasons. These are the cards that are no debate. These can stay on the ban list. Don't play. Yeah, they either don't work, they're not good, that kind of thing. So non-function cards, these are conspiracies from the set, Conspiracy and Conspiracy 2 Take the Crown. You just literally can't. Like, they don't have any gameplay function in a deck, so can't play them. Don't use those.
So the cards that require you to have drafted it at a certain point.
I mean, you can technically play some of those, but they don't really do a whole lot otherwise. But these are like the conspiracy, the subtype specifically. You can't play those.
Yes.
Yeah. Magic used to have this old mechanic called anti-cards. They have all been retroactively banned from anything ever. So this is outside of just Commander itself. You can't play these anywhere. They made a few black border cards that used a little bit of physical dexterity and other like outside gameplay things. So this is Chaos Orb, Falling Star, and Shahrazad. These are also cards that are just banned everywhere because you don't need to be doing stuff like this.
Very neat cards.
Yeah. They're neat, absolutely, but definitely not in like real games. Like, please don't be doing Shahrazad in real games.
Yeah, also, don't tear up your Chaos Orb, please.
All right, to keep chugging along here, the last couple, like we're not talking about, not too terribly long ago, there were some cards that were kind of like retroactively removed from the list of cards within like the database due to, how would you describe this?
Racially insensitive.
Racially insensitive subject matter. These have just kind of been scrubbed from the database entirely. All of them have been banned as well.
Wizards is like, we can do better than this, and then they did.
100%.
Yeah, those ones, not for a power reason they got banned, but I understand why they've removed them from the game. Totally. So don't play those either. So this leaves us then with a ban list of about 42 cards spread out among different categories. And probably the first one to talk about right at the top is most of the Power 9.
Yeah.
It's called the Power 8.
It's not all of it.
Yeah. Did you know that, Jared? Yeah, you did.
I did know that.
Mm-hmm. You can
I have so many thoughts.
Yeah, you can play Time Twister still in Commander for some reason, but every other piece of the Power 9 is banned. So that is Black Lotus, all 5 of the zero-cost Mox, Ancestor Recall, and Time Walk.
You can actually play the full Power 10 in Commander, which is also Soul Ring.
That's fair. Yeah, I definitely have heard that argument before. Soul Ring is certainly up there.
Definitely is more powerful than Time Twister.
Yeah, it definitely is. I agree with that.
Starting the hot takes off strong.
Yeah, that's a very hot take, but I agree.
Yeah, these should definitely, from both a monetary standpoint and a gameplay standpoint, these should not be a part of the game. They're like cool, like the pantheon of like OG Magic power, but they should not be touched with a 10-foot pole.
So, real quick, this brings up a very good discussion. Time Twister is legally playable. It is a Power 9 card. It's also like thousands of dollars. So the problem is it's basically just Wheel of Fortune. And that's why it's not banned, because Wheel of Fortune is a totally playable card. However, to me, a lot of the reasoning when, like, if you go to the actual rules committee website, like they mention for like Black Lotus, they mention for the Power 9, like a lot of these cards are banned for optical reasons, as in they make the format look unplayably expensive to people that don't play. If you sit down at a table and you see someone with a $20,000 Black Lotus, like that says something about the game you're about to start playing.
Interesting.
And so they're like, okay, we need to ban this. So to me, it's a little bit silly to be like, okay, well, this is just blue Wheel of Fortune. But even though, so we're just going to allow this to be played, even though it's like $3,000. Like, to me, I'm like, well, okay, so Mox Diamond has to go, and then this has to go, like, immediately. And also, like, the red Wheel of Fortune, if you're doing optics, it's like, you have to start considering cards over, like, a certain price point. Is $1,000, like, the acceptable limit of, like...
It's true.
Like, you have to start, you can't just be like, for optics, and then just also, like let some slide through.
This is such an interesting thing because Wizards of the Coast as a company is not allowed to recognize the secondary market. Like, they're not allowed to recognize what price cards are for, but the rules committee definitely is. So like this is a really weird overlap of the Venn diagram where like I wouldn't be surprised if within the next few years, because as another sort of a sidebar, all of this transparency from the rules committee is very recent. There was like an overhaul of the committee and they like put out this whole statement about how they wanted to be more transparent with their bannings and their reasoning behind bannings. So they put out this whole document like going card by card on like, why is this banned? This is why we think it should or shouldn't be banned. And that's where the optics comment comes from, but it's an old comment. So I wouldn't be surprised if they walk that one back and find new reasons for the power 8, power 9 -1.
Yeah. Because like that calls into question a lot of playable cards in CDH, which is why these two formats could, like, this question isn't even a question if you just separate those two formats. Play Time Twister in CDH and ban it in casual. Like, it's easy.
Yeah.
You can keep your Mox Diamond, you keep your format the same, you keep your LED. Like, it's fine. No one's playing those in normal games of Commander anyway. So, not to harp on that a lot, but that if we separated those two things, it would solve almost every single problem on this ban list.
Yeah, I like that this is the hill that you're going to die on.
Oh, this is a good hill. This is a good hill.
I'll carry
Come
you
at
up
me in
that
the
hill.
comments. I want you to give me.
I find it so interesting that you're so adamant of this like ban list separation, because it's one of the main attributes as we roll into the next section here on legendary creatures. A lot of people were like having confusion and troubles with the ban list, because as we roll into our next subject here, talking about the specific legendary creatures, there used to be a ban list category that was banned as Commander specifically, and that got too confusing apparently for casual commanders, so they just dropped that notion entirely and just added the legendary creatures as a whole, just part of the ban list.
Yeah. Man, let's just segue into that right now. Let's just go there.
So a quick read of what these cards are here. So these are the legendary creatures that are banned in Commander. So this means they cannot be your commander at all, and they also cannot be part of your 99. This is Braid's Cabal Minion, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, Oraio Soratami Ascendant, Golos Tireless Pilgrim, sad, Grizzlebrand, Iona Shield of Emeria, Leovold Emissary of Trest, Lutri the Spell Chaser, and Raphelos Llanowar Emissary.
Yeah,
I have
these
some
are all
thoughts here. If I can jump in,
go for it.
Half
Joseph.
of these don't make sense as banned cards when you start thinking of them outside of banned as Commander, because Leovold is totally fine in the 99. Like, Leovold is not different than a handful of other cards that do the same thing that he does. It's just
like Notion Thief.
Yeah, it's just that you could play him as the Commander. So like, there was no clean way for them to say you shouldn't be able to play him from the command zone, but he's fine in the 99. So you can't just like leave him off. So you just have to ban him entirely, and that sucks. Same with Raphelos, honestly. Like, Raphelos is only that good because you guarantee get him on turn 2.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if he's in the 99, also part of, like, and we can talk about Toxrill for a second here, because this is another one that, like, if we bring back banned as Commander, Toxrill should be banned as Commander. It's totally fine in the 99. Part of the, like...
The card sucks.
Well, part of the loophole of this format is that you always have this card in hand and it's recastable. So, like, the reason why Leovold was banned as Commander is because you just play it on turn 3, play a wheel, and then, like, you have backup because he constantly lives in the command zone if anyone's able to get rid of him. Same with Raphelos, where it's like on turn 2 he comes down and makes you an nearly infinite amount of mana. Like,
before you continue on your rapid fire of these creatures, I want to support your point real quick. The Commander Rules Committee ban list, like, part of their logic behind it is not apparently based around power level. They literally make that distinction when explaining the ban list.
Okay.
But half of these creatures, like, the only way to look at this ban list and say, oh, Leovold is on here, like, that is not like, that card functions well. Like, it's fine. Like, if you look at the card, it is fine. It's 3 mana, but it's of 3 entirely different colors, so you're not even guaranteed to have that on your 3rd turn. You might have to wait until your 4th or 5th turn to cast him. So the effect, yeah, it's strong, but it's not like crazy powerful. There's Baral, Chief of Compliance, which I'm pretty sure most people would have a harder time playing against. And I'm not saying to ban Baral because Leovold is banned. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are cards like Leovold, and just because, like, legendary creatures are allowed to be played as a commander, so there should be special rules surrounding them, including bannings. Like, that makes sense, right? hello. Like
This
certain
was-
cards are fine in the 99 and certain cards are like if you put them in the command zone, they become so powerful like that like you just can't get rid of it. So banned as commander should come back.
I want to caveat that I genuinely do think the rules committee does a great job. I do not envy their position in trying to make everybody happy in this format. Like they have a really hard job and it's a really good set of people who do a really good job. Getting rid of banned as commander is the thing that I disagree with them the most on because of exactly that. Like Raphaelos is such a, or not Raphaelos, sorry. Leovold is such a cool design for a card. Like it's so cool. I'll just read it off real quick. It's 3 mana, multicolors for 3/3. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. And then whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So it's such a game changer, and that's not that powerful in the 99. It really isn't. Like
if Leovold would have been printed today, he would have been printed exactly like that, except the second part would be once per turn.
Yes. It also would have Ward 2.
It would have Ward 2. Yeah. So you're so right. But if you look at that card on paper, it's fine. Like it's not doing anything inherently super broken. Like if you break it down and look at what it actually is doing, it is separating the card. It's creating a chasm of card advantage.
Yes.
But Narset part of Veils is legal. So this is where it's like if you get into this list and start breaking it down, for every single thing on here, you can find a reason to justify not being banned because of a card that is currently legally playable.
Yeah. I think overall I agree with the rest of them though.
What's your guys' if I'd like to circle over one real quickly. The interesting one on this list is the Day Zero Lutri, if you remember. He got
hard agree.
Yeah, hard agree. Any reconsideration on that since they've errated how Companion works?
Nope.
You don't think?
I think I don't know the specifics of the document them talking about banning Lutri, but it's just because it would go in any deck that has blue and red as a color identity. So like it would give an inherent advantage to playing a blue-red deck because you would get to play a 98 card deck.
Yeah, I think so. One of my like ethos behind like when a card should be bannable is like, is the card like poorly designed? Like, does it function badly within the game that is supposed to be played in? Lutri is literally a companion. So companion, if I'm not totally insane, was designed as a commander mechanic, correct?
It was designed to sort of bridge the gap between. It was sort of made to be like a commander for standard because it would exist in your sideboard, and you could cast it once per turn, once per game if you
met the requirements on the card.
The requirement for it. So you would reveal it from your sideboard. So it was sort of like playing commander in standard, but it just broke everything. Like it genuinely broke everything.
So yeah, it broke everything for commander because in standard you can run multiple copies of cards, and if you're not, your deck is probably horrible. So
yeah, Lutri would have never gotten played in standard.
No, like the card literally is horribly designed from the ground up because the format it was legally playable in, it would never have been played in, and the format that it basically like it was plug and play for commander. It was immediately banned because it became like an unfair advantage. Like, so to me,
even faster than immediately. If I recall from the time frame, like Lutri was pre-banned the day it was spoiled.
It was the only card that's ever had that happen, if I remember.
Yeah,
pretty much.
So this Lutri is a great example of like this card was literally a mistake that should never have been printed.
Companion is a mistake. This was in the last 10 years, the biggest mistake that Wizards made was companions.
Besides Lutri, I think my hot take here is Iona. I don't think Iona should be banned. Because
Iona's on here because she had to die for the sins of Painter Servant, unfortunately, when it got unbanned. You can't have a format where you can have Iona in your command zone and Painter Servant in your 99.
Yep.
Well, see, here's the thing. Iona is so expensive. And like, let's be real here.
I'm telling you, nobody has ever hard cast Iona. Nobody on this planet has ever played Iona and didn't cheat it into play somehow.
Well, here's what I'm saying. If Iona, like we're thinking about Iona in the command zone right now. If Iona's in the command zone, you have to hardcast it. There's no way to cheat that cost. So it's just a really expensive, terrible white angel. So it's shutting down colors. That's the problem that Iona has. So
it still is trouble in the 99 though.
Right. It's a problem, but that could be said for like literally like any card.
Gristlebrand as well, like is not a problem in the command zone, but is horrifying in the 99.
I think, yeah. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know about Gristlebrand. Gristlebrand's a weird one. I think it's okay to be banned regardless because paying 7 life in a format where you have 40 life is too good.
Right.
But so back Iona, like it's taking color options away from people and basically shutting you. It's punishing you for playing a monocolored deck, which really sucks. That's just like something that shouldn't happen. But I don't think it's bannable because we have Blood Moon legally in play. Like if you aren't like, basically it's like that's the same exact problem, and that card is only 3 mana and it's an enchantment, so it's much harder to remove than a creature. So
my counter would be, do monocolor decks even care against Blood Moon, right?
They actually solve opposite problems.
Yeah, would Delny even care against Blood Moon?
Exactly. Delny would play Blood Moon if I could.
So I don't mean it to say that like Blood Moon affects monocolored decks the same way.
The philosophy behind both of them is identical.
It's the same thing. They create different play patterns because of the way they function. But to me, I'm like, this is where you start splitting hairs in a very unmeaningful way, where it's like,
is your hot take that we should ban Blood Moon?
This is it. Like, so if Iona is on the ban list, then
you
Blood
dare
Moon
play a card that affects my stuff in play? Ban it!
Well, so if we think about toxic play patterns, like play patterns where there is no interaction that can be taken to respond to what your opponents do in order to like fix the situation for yourself, or at least rebalance the scales so it's not completely unfair. Your opponent's just running away with the game. These create situation like Blood Moon gets played to remove people's ability to interact. Like it's Drannith Magistrate in red, essentially. That is why you play it. There's a black card that's exactly the same. I can't remember what it's called. Contamination. Contamination is the black version of Blood Moon. And that card, like it functions exactly the same way. I've never seen it played. It doesn't have like the same, like, it's not the same household name as Blood Moon is, but like these cards all function the same way, where they hate out a certain color or they cause people to not have access to the things they literally built their deck to do. And essentially they stop you from being able to play the cards that you put together. And it's not even like in a way that you can interact, because if you can't interact with a Blood Moon, like if you don't interact with it on stack, Blood Moon is shutting you down. You're not going to be able to interact with it once it's on the field. So it creates that exact same play experience where it's like, why, like, what are we doing? Like, I thought we were all trying to play Magic, and like interacting is literally a way in which we play the game with each other.
Right.
So all of the ways that like, Iona is bad for the game, those cards are also bad. So I'm saying,
ooh, okay. I know the difference between the two of them. Iona is one-sided, whereas Blood Moon is symmetrical. You have to build your deck around Blood Moon. You don't have to build your deck around Iona. If you're playing white in any capacity, especially if you have ways to reanimate or cheat creatures into play, you just play it and shut down all of your opponents, but you still get to play.
That is true. I'll concede that point to you. I still stand that like a 9-mana angel is not that, like, if you're weighing it on the scales, it's like you have to do a lot of work to get that 9-mana angel cheated into play. Still, you're still playing like 1 or 2 cards and waiting a couple of turns to get that in. Blood Moon can come down on turn 1 or 2, and then everyone is just screwed. So I still think like the argument is there. That's like, if we're going,
it's dodgy at best.
If we're going to think about bannings about things like Iona, Shield of Emeria, then we need to actually think about Blood Moon, contamination, effects like that. in order to like make it. This is about how to fix the ban list. So like, how do you make the ban list make sense? You give it ethos back, and then you make logical decisions that make sense in conjunction with each other. So we ban Blood Moon and we ban Contamination, or we take Iona off the ban list, which I don't think anyone would be mad about, because who's actually played against this freaking card?
John
Not
has.
me.
Me a lot. Yeah, me a lot. As my wife has been a longtime Kalia of the Vast player, she was devastated when Iona was banned.
Yes.
Dang. Dang.
Okay, before we move on, because we need to move on, but can someone explain Arios Origami Ascendant and why it's on the ban list to me?
It's there mostly because of the flipped enchantment side that says
takes
when
5 spells to flip it.
have you played against the Cheerios deck? Right? You go
I guess so.
You go this dude, 0-drop, 1 dot, run drop, Gataxian Probe, that's your 5 spells for the turn.
That's true.
Seems like magical Christmas land to me. I feel like this is pretty safe to pull off the ban list.
I was so torn on this one because of that exact kind of train of thinking. I think what I settled on was it's 2 mana, so it's really easy to get down on turn 1 and then flip it like really quick. Like if he's your commander, you're building the deck to do it. So maybe as early as turn 3 or 4, you're countering everyone's first spell a turn, which doesn't allow anyone to get into the game to like remove him or like do anything back to you. Go ahead, John.
And then that's the whole commander thing again as well. Then once someone is able to get rid of it, it just goes right back to your command zone to do again. That's why it's on the list.
Yeah. So I think that one is solidly a bannable offense. It did, like, I had to think about it though. I was like, man, is it actually that strong? Like there's definitely where you just like don't flip this card. Like this card just sucks and it doesn't do anything the entire game. But it's
all right.
Yeah. Anyway,
let's move on to the next category here.
Yep. Let's keep moving along here. So we're now past the legendary creatures here. So everything else is part of the ban list here. They're just regular old cards. And we've broken them down into assorted categories kind of based on what they do as far as the play pattern that they offer for Commander. And the biggest first one here is the cards that just accelerate you way too fast in mana. Like these are the cards that are banned on here because just if they were legal to play, everyone would play them and things would just be expedited way too fast. These are Channel, Fast Bond, Primeval Titan, Sylvan Primordial, and Tolarian Academy.
The rules
Heavy
committee,
hitters.
like 15 years ago, had such a vendetta against green. Like,
we were on the same wavelength. I was having the same thought. Go ahead.
they legitimately, like for a long time, over half the ban list was green. Like it was just like one of their buddies was playing a lot of green, I guess.
They must have been playing Raphellos.
They were like, wait a second, we own the ban hammer. So I think
that Raphellos guy, I can't believe he's playing Gaia's Cradle in the command zone. I hate it.
Yeah, like I do understand why some of these are still on here. Primeval Titan feels so outclassed these days. Like I don't even know if they unbanned Primeval Titan if it would go in most green decks.
I bet it probably would just because Primeval Titan is lands. It's not non-basics. So
it's
Prime Time and Sylvan Primordial to an extent for that as well. These are just the kind of pieces that just funnel their way into 2-card combos.
Man, Sylvan Primordial 2 is like, that shouldn't be on there. That shouldn't be there. If you're like doing your whole thing and you're reanimating a Sylvan Primordial or whatever, just to get like a couple of lands off of your like friends, like again, this is the kind of thing that Sylvan Primordial and Primeval Titan would not be banned if we had a CDH ban list and Casual Commander didn't have a ban list. So this is one of those like weird bridgy gappy things that like I genuinely think both of those could come off and it would be totally fine. And I have played against Primeval Titan plenty because that's always the argument is like, what's that?
I think every green card on this list, at least all the ones I'm thinking of, could be unbanned if we had a CDH ban list and a casual ban list. Even Fast
They just,
Bond
like,
is
hammer.
totally fine in an environment that can handle it.
Yeah.
Channel too, like so what? Pay life.
Oof, I don't know about Channel.
Hard pass on Channel.
I think I disagree with Channel.
Basically, green's ad nauseum. Like green is the worst color in CDH. That is not even a debate.
Facts.
This
it is
Channel,
very true.
Channel could give people a reason to play green, an entire fifth of the card pool.
Really true.
It could give a reason for CDH to consider green again as like something they want to play. And to me, that's a great reason to unban a card. I'm like, yeah, it's strong, but that's what, like, no one's kidding around about CDH. We know it's a strong format. Like, this is where it's designed back, this level of play. Put it in there.
Yes. But again, with the current philosophy, the casual tables would get absolutely steamrolled by Primeval Titan. Like, it's so much value that, like, anyway, we should move on from here. This is a long, dark rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Speaking of strength, though, our next category is strong enablers.
So that was just kind of like a broad stroke one I throw in here. These are essentially the cards that I could think of, and some of these could maybe be like flip flopped around between either being an enabler or an accelerator, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would reword this as like cards that encourage like bad or toxic play patterns or like warp games around themselves. Cards like Coalition Victory does not need to exist. That is just a card that I wish we could just erase from time.
The perfect example of really bad design. Like, it literally is. It says play a 5-colored creature and then play this card and then you win. And that's if you have a Kenrith in your command zone. Or not Kenrith, actually, he's not 5-colored. But if you have literally like any 5-colored,
if you have that ley line from MKM,
or that, you
basically just win the game on turn 1 or whatever
on the spot, and that's why Coalition Victory is bad. Yeah. Again, it's an example. It's the Lutri of win cons. It's like this card, they were testing something out, and they messed up, and they printed it without really. They didn't realize the mistake. So whatever. Yeah. But we need to ban the card now because it sucks.
Coalition Victory, Gifts Ungiven, Caracas, Library of Alexandria, Panoptic Mirror, Paradox Engine, Prophet of Crufix, Recurring Nightmare, and Time Vault are the ones that we have in this category.
Yeah, and these are basically all here because like a large portion of them, they encourage playing in a very like looping kind of pattern, right? Like these cards enable you to do one really strong thing. That's what your deck is now trying to get around, because like how many decks were built around Paradox Engine when it was playable? Way too many. Way too many.
Yeah. It didn't even need to be built around it. It was just as soon as it landed, it was like, well, game's over.
It was the strongest thing on the table.
Yeah, it was
every spell that I cast is now a Time Walk.
It was the 99th card in every deck because it was a colorless artifact. So like, for those of you who are lucky enough to not know what Paradox Engine does, because that means you haven't played against it, it untaps all of your non-land permanents every time you play a card. So it basically Seedborn Muses you every single time you do anything, which I don't know if you guys know how strong that is. Like, that is so powerful.
How is Seedborn Muse not on the ban list?
See, Prophet of Crufix, its big brother.
It's true. Yeah. So,
Prophet of Crufix. That one is
honestly,
that card definitely deserves being here.
Prophet of Crufix was just, I get 4 extra turns every turn.
For those of you who don't know what Prophet of Crufix does, it untaps all your creatures and lands during everyone's on tap, and it also allows you to cast everything at flash speed. So it's Vidalcan Orrery and Seedborn Muse staple
creatures. You can cast creatures with flash.
Oh, true. Fair. Not quite as good, but it's still insane.
You imagine this in a world with Thoracle? These were not printed in this plus Thoracle would have been like the strongest deck in existence.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sucked though. This is again similar to the Paradox Engine. This just as soon as it hit play, just warped the entire game around it.
Yeah. This category is actually a great example of these are cards that are all really too powerful and they deserved to get to be on the ban list for whatever reason.
Yes.
The only one I might disagree with.
Raising my hand real quick.
Go ahead.
Panoptic Mirror?
That was my disagreement.
What are we doing with this?
So Panoptic Mirror is part of this list because extra turn cards exist. If you throw an extra turn card onto Panoptic Mirror, you have infinite turns.
If it doesn't get removed.
yeah.
It just,
again,
this one feels pretty loosey-goosey.
How's that? I was gonna say, how's that any different than the argument for all these cards on here? Is like, well, how do you solve a paradox engine? Blow it up.
Right.
That's very valid. They are both 5 mana artifacts. Panoptic Mirror, I'm torn on because, the obvious thing to do is like imprint extra turn spell onto this and then just go off, and like you just get to keep going. I think extra
Rip Panoptic
turns,
Mirror, you would have loved Slime Against Humanity.
bro. Oh my god! Imagine if you had that. I think the extra turn spells are the problem, and one.
Thank you.
Look me in the eyes right now and tell me that you have had fun playing against an extra turns deck. Do it.
I have a little bit of fun whenever John plays his Myra deck and imprints the coin flip.
That's a totally different situation because it's hilarious. Like,
because John's
not a
governing
guarantee.
himself.
It's not a guarantee that the extra turn goes off.
Right.
But this is a different situation. There's not even that many like legal extra turn spells anymore because like all the good ones were like incredibly broken and too powerful. So those did get banned. One of them is the 2 mana one that's just insane that got printed.
Power 9.
Power 9. But yeah, so no one likes extra turns. Why are we banning a completely fine card in order to keep extra turn spells in the game? That's a little bit silly to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Time Vault is also on this list, which is another extra turn ridiculous enabler. The only one that I really hate is I really like Recurring Nightmare. It's one of my favorite cards in the game, which is part of why I play Slimefoot and Squee, which is just a fixed Recurring Nightmare. So
that's the thing. I think
rip Recurring Nightmare.
That's just bad card design. Like if they had designed the card a little bit better, then it wouldn't be a problem. It's the fact that it goes back to your hand. That's part of the cost of the card.
Yep. If they had moved the colon.
Literally. Which, honestly, I'm like, just errata your card, Wizards. You can fix
functional errata would have been totally fine for them.
You do that for other cards literally all the time. I don't know why they just didn't for that one. Because that's a totally playable, fine card without the way that it is specifically worded on the card.
Yes. Well, moving on with our brave takes from our armchairs, let's move on to other accelerators.
Yeah, this category kind of goes hand in hand with the last one. Is like these are cards that definitely help enable you into stronger strategies. But I have separated these ones because some of them are either like they're going and doing specifically like some card drawing, like extra accelerating like that, or it's just beyond busted cheating into play. So this is Flash, Tinker, Trade Secrets, and Yawgmoth's Bargain.
Agree with all these. Jared, what do you think? Jared, no. Jared doesn't understand how Flash Hulk works.
I do. I had that in the deck, actually.
Jared doesn't understand that it was a turn 0 combo.
I played Flash Hulk. I know how it works. I know what it does. I know it's a horrible deck, though. Yeah, like you have to play so many cards that only function together, and you gotta hope you don't draw any of them. Like the way Protean Hulk works, the Flash Hulk combo is you play Flash on hopefully turn 1, maybe turn 2, because it's a 2 CMC blue instant.
Or turn 0.
Turn 0 if you have like Gemstone Caverns and some other weird stuff going on. But so the part about it is like they realized in CDH, and this is like a weird nod to CDH. It's like the only card on this list that is banned specifically because CDH was like, please help. So Flash gets banned because Flash Hulk together means you flash in a Protean Hulk, and the downside to Flash is you have to sack the creature that you flashed into play. It's not a downside, though, if the creature you want to die. So
not a bug, it's a feature.
It's a feature. It's actually just more upside to this card. Yeah. So
and then you get to dig through your deck, find your combo, and win the game on the spot.
You win immediately.
All I'll say is, Rip Flash, you would have loved Gruff Triplets.
Dude. I think Flash is a totally playable card because the ninjutsu mechanic is basically Flash. Like, if you have been ninjutsu to death by a Blightsteel Colossus, you have played against Flash. So
that's quite the hot take.
Yeah, I hard disagree with that. Flash is strong because it allows you to get your big dumb thing, like outside of just Protean Hulk, you know, like you get your big dumb thing down, it's ETB and it's dead now in the graveyard for animate dead or reanimate.
Yeah. Really? Also, like, I mean, Sundering Titan is also on this list. So, like, if you could turn 1 or turn 2 Flash in Sundering Titan and just like wipe all the lands on the board, like, there's too many things that Flash enables that it should be the one, because Protean Hulk is fine on its own. I actually love Protean Hulk combo without Flash. Flash was just too consistent for it.
The thing is, here's what's up. As the person who's played the deck,
I've also played Flash Hulk.
You have to have it in your hand. You have to have them both in your hand, or you have to hope you draw, which you're not keeping a Flash hand if you don't have them both in your hand, because you're not going to just hope you draw Protean
Hulk. The
Hulk.
rest of your deck is just tutors.
But you got to get there. And if you're playing in CDH, people can stop you. So, and Turbo is really bad in CDH right now. And I think this would actually provide some swing back and some balance to the mid range that's happening. So it's about thinking about the format as a whole. Obviously, Flash, like Protean Hulk, I don't think, like, to me, Protean Hulk is the combo. Like, that is the part of the problem. Like, that's the part of the problem that is, or combo that is the problem. Protean Hulk comes down and dies, and then you just get all of your stuff. It all happens at once after Protean Hulk dies. So we're identifying the cause of the issue. I have a legal Protean Hulk. It's not in any deck right now because it's not good. it needs an enabler to be playable, and to me, that's why, like, they work together. But Flash
Hulk for value. I'm into it.
Hulk for value is so weird, but I personally just think it's fine. Like, it really is, like, you can interact with the combo. Like, you can counter Flash. Force of Will exists in CDH.
Again, though, this comes back to our, like, this ban list has to govern the entire format. So, right. Like, Flash Hulk would absolutely stomp at casual tables. Like,
I disagree because it's all about deck building philosophy. To me, if you are building Flash Hulk correctly, you have to really, like, commit to Flash Hulk. Like, your deck is built around it. So if someone then stops what you're doing, you are pretty much dead in the water. Like, you have put all your eggs in one basket to go as absolute fast as possible.
Into your 2-mana 1-card basket. It's a 1-card combo, Jared.
But there's a bunch of dead cards in your deck that, like, you have to think of, like, you cannot have any of them in your hand when you resolve the combo, because you can't get them out of your deck if they're in your hand. So
there's
it's a
redundancy pieces. This is a straw man argument.
I don't know. You also have to play a lot of colors to do
it. Also, I think that part of why they banned Flash is for the future as well, because it allows them to print very powerful big things that have death triggers and not have to worry about Flash.
That is a good. That's the only viable reason I've heard so far of keeping Flash banned, because that's a great design. Like, recognize, like, oh, if we print anything with a strong death trigger, it's just going to be a Flash target now. We have like Flash is not an amazingly designed card. Maybe we should think about this. So I'll concede to that. In the current landscape, I think it's obvious.
I'm 2 for 2, people.
One of the two, like Flash or Hulk, have to stay banned. And right now it's Flash. I just think that there's a world where CDH can have both of these cards playable. And I don't think it's definitely not the best deck in the format, even if both of these are legal. So that's inevitable. Like, that's why I think it's fine, because it actually is. It's not better than Rogsai. It's not better than Blue Farm. It is not better than Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation. So I'm like, why are we, like, dying on this hill of keeping Flash banned and keeping Protean Hulk Flash combos out of CDH? So it's just weird. It just makes no sense.
All right, Jared, I'm curious to see how you plan to talk your way out of all of these unfun cards at the bottom of the barrel list here. This is all the stuff that you've been saying. It's like, these are the things that need to be off the list, you know? Like, oh, get rid of the things that bounce away all your lands, or stop all the extra card draw and mass land destruction and stuff like that. So talk your way out of these ones here. So the bottom of our list here is just remaining. These are just unfun play pattern cards, right? The sort of like no-nos on the social contract of Commander, things like that. So we have Balance, Biorhythm, Hull Breacher, Limited Resources, Sundering Titan, Sway of the Stars, and Upheaval.
Yeah. Love this list, first of all. I think this list is a good one.
Love this list, however.
I do have some takes. It's going to be interesting. First, let me just agree with Sway of the Stars and Upheaval and Sundering Titan. Limited Resources, those all are terrible cards that should stay banned. Sundering Titan is a huge problem because it kills basics. Like, why are you killing people's basics? That is like the worst behavior. Like, that's just rude. Stop. Sway of the Stars, we talked about that one a little bit earlier. It basically resets your entire game. It shuffles everything back into the libraries and puts everyone at 7 life. And then you just start over. Like,
they did unban Worldfire recently.
Yeah, they did do that.
Which is kind of like Sway of the Stars. I think Sway of the Stars is on the chopping block because it's a 10 mana sorcery. Like,
it's kind of like if you're at 10 mana and this is the best thing you've got to do, that's kind of like on you.
For sure. But also
and you're definitely
Red needed
not,
help.
You're not getting invited back if you Sway the Stars. Right. At a table. It's just know that.
Honestly, the difference I would say out of that is, as someone who has played in a game where a Worldfire resolved, it is so much fun having everybody be in top deck mode of who can get to that one life first.
Everybody at 1.
Yeah.
And does it kill? It kills everyone's cards too, right?
Yeah. It hits everybody's hand. It hits everybody's hand, graveyard, permanents they control, and sets their life to 1.
Yes.
So it was, by my understanding, it was part of the list because you could set yourself up for it, knowing that you have it in your deck, of like putting cards that you own under exile effects. And when they're taken away from the Worldfire, they come back to your battlefield. So you would end up being the only one with permanents. That was one of the original reasons it was banned in the first place. But I guess cards have gotten to such a way now that that kind of deck building idea isn't really that huge of a concern anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that Sway of the Stars is still on here.
It's certainly something you could still do, but again, as I've said, is like I've had the game once. We ended up it was 4-way mono red actually, which also made it even fun. It was
amazing.
Yeah, it was even funnier. So 4 mono red players at 1 life of who was going to find Lightning Bolt first.
That's
spoilers.
Our dream.
It wasn't me. I got second place.
Dude. Oh my god,
that sounds like so much fun.
It was.
That sounds like an absolute blast. And that's a great example of why Worldfire is probably not banned and Sway of the Stars is. Because even though it's a 10 CMC spell, basically banning it is like, hey, this is a bad play pattern. We would love for you to do anything but this with 10 mana. Please do something different. Cast missions. Like, you can Enter the Infinite. I don't know if that's 10 CMC.
You can just win the game. Yeah.
Yeah, you can win the game for 10 mana. So just do that instead. This is literally like the slap on the wrist card of the ban list. Like, I can't believe we have to say this out loud, but like, please don't play that card.
Jared, I saw in your show notes, that you have some thoughts on Hull Breacher.
Yeah. So, Hull Breacher, basically, whenever an opponent were to draw an additional card per turn beyond their first one, you would get to make a treasure token. So it prevents that from happening. And then you get to make a treasure token if you control the Hull Breacher. It also has flash. So if someone goes to like dig through time or like draw a bunch of cards, you can just flash in Hull Breacher. Now they don't. So they spent all their mana on something. They don't get to do it anymore. And then you get a ton of resources. And then you just get to keep doing that. And the chasm of resources, this is kind of like, we were talking about Leovold earlier, how the problem people have identified with the card is it creates a chasm of resources, but it does that slowly and incrementally over time. Hull Breacher is like instantly. It is like, boom. Okay, all those resources that you thought you were going to get, I'm getting them instead. I was also probably doing better than you because I had 3 mana to save up to cast this card before you were going to do something.
I mean, if you cast this in response to like a windfall, like that's end of game.
Yeah.
Like complete end of. I think that the flash is actually the problem on this. If it didn't have flash, it would be, again, like Leovold, which is all still on the ban list, should have been fine.
Yeah.
I
think that I think Hull Breacher was Casual's response to not knowing how to play removal correctly. Like, I think Hull Breacher in CDH is fine. Like, we have tons of things like this already.
Yeah. You do, you have to save your removal for Hull Breacher, though, is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, if it exists in the format and someone's playing blue, that means that you can't remove something else.
The thing about Hull, it's 3 mana, right? It's like 2
3 mana flash for a 3/2.
It's way too powerful for 3 mana. I think it should be like 5 mana minimum for this card. Like, I think it at the end of the day, it's like,
or at least
designed,
at least 4, so it's on the comparable of Notion Thief.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that level of power, and it's too cheap. And I think that's really why Hull Breacher ended up here.
Because we've seen like Narset Parter Avails does exist and is totally fine.
Yes.
And it
doesn't give you treasure every time your opponents didn't get to draw that card they were going to. And that is the problem with Hull Breacher.
The fact that it exists to be a negative for your opponents, but a huge positive for you is crazy.
Joseph, I would argue, you said the way to fix Hull Breacher would be to take away the flash. I would argue probably the better way to fix it is maybe to leave the flash so you can still do the haha got you kind of thing. Change its text so that it only creates a treasure when an opponent draws 1 or more cards. That way now it's only a single treasure, even if it is off of something like a windfall.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That is like an actual fix. That is a fix.
Yeah, because you can still catch them with flash. You can still deny extra card draw, but you're not ramping as hard. That's the caveat.
Are we sneaky advocating for alchemy right now, where they can just patch cards?
Whoa. In my notes next to Hull Breacher, I wrote Dockside. I just wrote that with 3 question marks beside it because to me, these cards have very similar energy. Dockside is 2 mana, and it comes down, and unless you're playing in a casual table, which is kind of where, like, we talked about this, having a correct understanding of the 2 different formats that exist inside of one format that we pretend exists, like, we could fix this. But Dockside should die for the sins of casual. Like, it is not a casually legal card. Like, this shouldn't be played at casual tables. It's fine in CDH because it only just generates value. And there are so many other ways for CDH players to also do this. I'm glad Red has something to do in CDH. It needs something to compete with Black and Blue. So that said, I think Dockside is totally a bannable card for casual. It is like $90, maybe more dollars at this point. Like,
it is. It's like $90 right now.
It's to the point where it's like, if you aren't playing Dockside, you have to wonder if your deck isn't as good as it could be. Like, and you just shouldn't have to feel like that when it's like a $90 card.
True.
Also, the only thing it does is make you treasure. Like, that feels silly to like have to do that kind of mental gymnastics on a card whenever you're building a deck. And just because of how much like hate this card gets, another one that's, to me, like Hull Breacher, Dockside, Orcish Bowmasters, like these are all in my head. Like they're like the same style of card. They're all too cheap for what they do. And that's like the problem with them. Orcish Bowmasters is only 2 mana. Why?
He does so much.
That is nonsense to me. Like, honestly, Orcish Bowmasters makes Dockside and Hull Breacher look like nothing to me. Like, also Mirkwood Bats, like those if
they went crazy on the Lord of the Rings set.
Just so I don't take up too much time here, if Hull Breacher is banned, Dockside, Orcish Bowmasters, Mirkwood Bats, all the cards that you can insert that feel the exact same way that those cards feel whenever they get cast, those should all be on the ban list too. And if they're not, then Hull Breacher should come off.
Opposition Agent? Anyone still care about that?
I think that should be banned.
Op Agent has kind of fallen out of favor as a card.
I think for a casual environment, I think it's totally fair to ban that card.
Really,
that feels bad.
But no one's like outside of like Terramorphic Expanse. Nobody is like searching their library in a casual environment. No one's playing Opposition Agent in a casual environment.
And this is where it's
you underestimate how much Cultivate stuff casuals play.
Yeah, like you do search your libraries a lot.
People like me who will still argue that Explosive Vegetation is still a very good card.
1 sec.
Hell yeah.
Look up Opposition.
No, but yeah, like most people are playing. Like, what's the rule of thumb for ramp spells? Like, isn't it like
14?
Yeah, like
14?
If they're actually, I don't know,
14 pieces of ramp.
It depends on who you ask, but it's a high number.
I put like 5 in my deck, and I think that's way too many.
This is why I win.
It's a high number, and basically, if all of the players at the table are trying to hit that number at to some varying degree of success. Let's say, just for fun, let's make it easy, 6 pieces of ramp per deck. That is 18 cards that a Notion Thief could hit.
Opposition Agent.
Opposition. That's 18 cards that could hit without you even having to think about why that card is in your deck. And to me, I'm like, that's like, if you have to start worrying about whether you're playing too much ramp because someone can play a card that might steal a card from your library in case you ramp, like that's kind of an insane decision to make in a casual environment. So to me, that's a good indicator of maybe this card isn't for casual. Yeah, it's not casual. It's pretty sweaty if you're doing that to somebody.
Pretty sweaty is crazy.
Here's the ultimate problem when it comes to having like a ban list of this kind of thing. Is like we start talking about all these other like spread out categories. It's like, oh, get this card banned because it's not fun against this play pattern. What play pattern do you eventually boil down to that like everyone is happy with? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Someone doesn't like control. Someone doesn't like Enchantress. Someone hates playing against tribal.
We should all play Battle Cruiser.
Yeah, we all just devolved back to Battle Cruiser. You know what I mean?
No.
Except for Jared, because he doesn't like Battle Cruiser.
The format is the
reprint alpha.
That I mentioned land destruction.
It's like a twist on like one of my favorite like movie quotes. Is like when everything is unfun, nothing is fun.
True. That's true. And that's like, to me, I'm not willing to say that I really think, what is it, Notion Thief that we were talking about?
Opposition Agent.
Opposition. For some reason in my head, I get those two cards confused.
They're very similar.
Notion Thief, I don't actually think that card should be like banned. I'm not really warranting for that card to get banned. I just think it's like, those are cards that make you think about like, why do we ban a card? Like, what does our format actually want to do? Why do we ban it? And that's why I brought up land destruction, because like that's an obvious yes. Like we could ban land destruction for casual commander and probably even competitive, because I don't even know of a deck that's doing that.
Decks would be affected.
We could just blow up, like we could just remove land destruction from the game and it would be a more fun game. Like you wouldn't have to ever worry about your lands getting blown up. That's dope.
But I don't ever really worry about that anyway. Like,
right.
This is one of those things that's like, if they just start going like, oh, people don't like this, so let's just ban it. It's like, but everyone has kind of agreed. Like somehow almost every play group has decided like, we don't allow mass land destruction. It's also just not a really effective thing to do. Like, unless you're literally winning the game because of it, like it's kind of net zero where you're like, I'm going to land destruct, and it's sort of like Sway the Stars, where it's like we're kind of restarting the game from here. There's way more of those play patterns than there is like, okay, I'm going to do mass land destruction. Now you guys can't interact with me, and now I'm going to win the game. Like that rarely happens.
The land destruction thing then also comes down to an interesting point, is like, where do you start cutting off cards between being land destruction and spot removal?
Right.
Because
we're talking about mass land destruction. I'm talking like Armageddon, those kinds, like Ravages of War. Like those are the ones that like I think could either safely be banned or just don't really need to because no one actually plays them.
Yeah, because obviously Gaia's Cradle is legal, and I don't like. To me, I'm like,
I think it's actually valuable to play some amount of like
you need land, like targeted land removal, because there are certain lands in the game, like a Maze of Ith, for example. If you're playing Voltron and someone plays Maze of Ith, you got to figure that out. So
what do you do against the person that's doing Strip Mine Crucible of Worlds?
So that's the thing.
Well, Crucible Worlds.
You just you remove Crucible Worlds.
Strip Mine could probably be banned, to be honest.
Yeah.
TBH. Strip Mine, there isn't really like fun play patterns with Strip Mine, and it's shocking to me that it's not. I mean, it's banned in everything else. It's crazy that it's not banned. That is actually one of the. So they have just they've mashed so many ban list like versions together where like it used to be like I literally found out as they made the announcement about stickers and attractions that Commander doesn't use the vintage ban list anymore. That used to be the case for like all of eternity. So like Strip Mine was one that was banned in Legacy but legal in Vintage because Vintage doesn't really ban things. So like Commander was using the vintage ban list and now it's not anymore, which means it's not catching things like Strip Mine. So like they really should just kind of. Here's what I would do. If I woke up one day and I got a call from the rules committee and they're like, Joseph, you're in charge of the ban list, I would essentially wipe it and start fresh. I would say that 99% of the stuff lands back on this list, but you catch the things because you can just start from ground zero and just work your way back to where we are now and like not have things like. I also would reinstate Bandus Commander. I think that was a very valuable thing.
Yeah. Even in our like small like 5-minute discussion on whether or not that should come back, like it was pretty obvious it would help the format. And to me, that's like I wrote some stuff down that I might like if anyone wants it, I'll just like give it to you. But
just link it.
like the ban list is here to protect the format. Like that. That is why it's there. It's not there to limit the format. It's there to protect it and make it fun. And to me, it's like everyone can agree land destruction sucks. So just like stop. And put it on ban lists, and that because like the argument is always like, well, no one's doing that anyway. It's like until you play against that one guy who thinks it's hilarious, and then everyone has the worst game of Magic they've ever played. And this is where we go, okay, what is our game? What do we want in our game? Land destruction is not something we want, so we can ban it. Hello, like that never has to be the corner case. We can remove the corner case from the argument if it's a bad one. And in that case, it's like, that's to me, like when you think about things like Strip Mine, loops, or land destruction, those are like very good metrics for whether something is a negative play pattern actually, and not just like someone getting mad at stacks or like a weird strategy or like someone just not being super skilled at the game yet and not understanding like where their disadvantage or whatever is coming from. Like those are actual real identifiable negative play experiences that we can point to and be like, if we could change anything about the game, what would we all do differently? That's what the ban list has the power to do. True. I think to your point, like if we were able to like scrub the whole thing, start over, a lot of these cards would land back on it, but we would be able to like think clearly for the first time about the ban list because like a lot of these things are like grandfathered in from a different format that it's 1v1, so it like already doesn't really work. Like there's a lot of cards that had to like literally get errata for Commander play because the words are not the same. Some old cards before they didn't even fathom people would play this with more than one opponent. That's why it says target opponent like on a lot of older cards. So that said,
Aura of Silence comes to mind.
Yeah, it's like we got some work to do to make this game playable for Commander because it didn't start as a format. It did like the way that this game was built, the way these cards were designed. This game has kind of like cobbled itself together into a 4-person like multiplayer format thing, and like the ban list is how it like gains its identity and has a structure, becomes playable, and stays enjoyable for everyone. So, that's you got to have that ethos when you think about this.
I'll buy that. John, do you have any last thoughts before we start wrapping this thing up?
Honestly, just kind of like sort of what we began opening this up with is like this is a very social and a engage with the play group that you are a part of. Like you had mentioned, Commander is kind of one of those things that, especially because it's multiplayer, you'll find your play group, your Discord friends, things like that you'll get together with your buddies. And Wizards can't break down your door and stop you if you don't want to adhere to the ban list.
They could send the Pinkertons.
But no, joking aside, that if you want more cards on your ban list, or you would like to take cards off your ban list, just chat with your friends about it, right?
Yeah,
right.
I think it would honestly be quite a cool thought experiment thing. Is like, hey, get a group of 4 together and have everybody make a deck using one of the banned legends. If everyone's on the same, play pattern, you should all be on equal play power. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But this is also coming from me, who's like kind of I'm not big on change as far as that kind of thing. So I'm it's on the list. There it is. Please adhere to it. I'm one of those kind of people, unfortunately. Not necessarily rules lawyery per se, but like kind of no matter where I'm at, even with my friends or out and about at other random shops and things like that, if it's part of the regulations and rules, I'm an adherer to it. I know that's kind of boring, but...
Well, I've never met anybody too who like wasn't a brand new player and didn't know about the ban list that was playing banned cards. I've like yet to come across someone who was like, no, I should be able to play this.
I've had that happen once recently. Our friend was kind of, I don't know if he was tricked per se, but he was coerced into purchasing a Yawgmoth bargain cheap, thinking he was playable.
No way.
Dang.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
That's called reserve list investments.
Yeah, he owns it now. He owns a Yawgmoth bargain, but just can't play it in his deck anymore.
All right, y'all. Well, this has been riveting. I now have more thoughts about the ban list than I ever thought that I would. But appreciate you both for jumping on here and hanging out with me and having this conversation and having so much fun with it.
If you guys, real quick before we end, if you guys could add one card to the ban list, what would it be? And if you could take one card off, just exactly the way the ban list is right now, what would it be?
Sweet. No discussion allowed.
Literally none.
Okay.
All caps, no sense of reason.
Yes. Add Thassa's Oracle, remove Primeval Titan.
Nice.
Add, oh goodness, I haven't thought about I would take off Prophet of Crufix because I'm a big either Prophet of Crufix or Golos. I really want my Golos back.
Totally fair.
I would add, I don't know, I'm probably on the Thassa's Oracle train as well.
That's fine. I don't have to have an original idea.
Man, if I could unban something, I would unban Flash. You guys know how I feel. I think it's fine. Or maybe I would unban Biorhythm. Hot take.
Whoa.
Hear me out. I said no discussion, but let me explain. This is a hot one.
No discussion. Keep going.
If you guys want to know why I would unban Biorhythm, hit me up in the Discord. I'm just going to drop that one and run.
Okay, what are you banning, Jared?
What am I banning? I think it's got to be Dockside Extortionist. As a Dockside player, I'm banning that card.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Again, if you guys, Jared mentioned it, you can join our Discord and chat with us about the episodes and get to know us and play some games with us. We're also, for the first time ever, on Spotify and your favorite podcast platforms. So it's super free, and it means a ton to us if you would add a 5-star review onto our podcast. That actually helps a ton with the algorithm. So if you want to support us and you want more content like this, drop us a 5-star there. All the buttons down below, and we will see you guys next time on the MTG Thoughtcast.